Hello again, everyone. It's been a while and I've missed you. Welcome back. It's our summer edition of From the Ground Up. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Carmen Milagro. I'm an entrepreneur, an entrepreneurist, which is a term that I prefer. I'm a master certified behavioral health and wellness coach, and among many other things, I'm also an author, an MC, motivational speaker, creator of Soothe Bio RF, and founder of both DIVINA, a wellness company, and the DIVINA World Foundation. Plus, I do double duty as the host of Wellness 360, a coaching series on Expand ITV. Now, on From the Ground Up, we share strategies and nuggets of wisdom from attorneys, doctors, industry leaders, celebrities, authors, investors, musicians, and artists from all walks of life. And we share their stories, their perspectives, and most importantly, their expertise. It's an opportunity for you to learn from our experts as well as connect with them. And who knows, they might even live in your own backyard. Today, I have a very special guest, someone who not too long ago took time out of her busy schedule to share her expertise at a fundraiser for the DIVINA World Foundation. Today, she's here to share some of that knowledge with you. Her name is Laura Croft, a local attorney, resident of, and whose law offices are located in San Mateo, California. Her firm, the Law Offices of Laura Croft, Timeless Estate Planning, works diligently to keep families out of court and avoid conflict if there's an emergency or when someone passes on. Laura takes on a very intentional and modern approach to estate planning in order to ensure that her clients and their legacies are honored. She also loves to spend time with family, barbecuing, watching the 49ers and the Warriors dominate, going on adventures with her children, snowboarding, hiking, working out, and she even loves to dance in the moonlight. Hello, Laura. I am going to bring you on. Thank you for waiting in our virtual green room. It's nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. Thank you so much for having me, Carmen.
I'm really excited, Laura, because I've gone through something personal like this that we didn't have all the things in place that we thought we were going to need. You know, when you lose someone, that's not the time to try to figure things out and make those decisions. So I'm very grateful that you're here to share your knowledge and your expertise with people who might be in that pre-planning stage and that you can guide them through some of this process.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. And I always say, part of estate planning or putting these documents in place, working with attorney is really about peace of mind. I always tell my clients, I want you to have the peace of mind knowing you've done everything to protect your children, protect your assets, keep your assets out of court and conflict if something happens to you. And the reason why is because I don't want you worrying about this at night. Let us worry about it. I want you to go out into the world and do what you're great at without this extra weight on your shoulders. Absolutely. And that's actually the feedback we get so often is, one, we always get, this was much easier than I thought, which is always like, oh, that's great. I love to hear that because that's a big concern. And I feel like I can sleep better at night. So it's such a big part of it.
It really is. I think I tried because of my experience to share that, impart that knowledge as much as I could. But sometimes the best person to listen to is the expert in this area, right? So I think let's get started with the topic that you mentioned it just a second ago, is protecting your children. What are the top 3 or 4 or 5 common mistakes that parents make in choosing or not choosing guardians?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in the beginning, when you were doing your lovely introduction, thank you so much. You were saying that, Laura takes a very intentional approach to estate planning. And that's very true. One of the things that I looked at is where traditional estate planning often fails families, right? Because when it fails, what we're left with is court and conflict and often a big mess. And usually estate planning is so targeted on the assets. And yes, that's so important. We want to make sure your assets stay out of court and conflict. But at the end of the day, we're often doing this to protect our children or to get those assets to our children. And where I've seen a huge hole in estate planning is actually in guardianship planning. So where do people typically make mistakes? First, I just don't think it was traditionally a focus of estate planning. Often we see guardians tucked in a will. That's where you would expect to see them. But people make, it's usually about, I think the average is 69% of parents out there have not even named guardians. And the ones that have, 31% of them have made one of these big mistakes. And some of the big ones, there's like one that really shines out to me.
Right.
Oh, and before I say that, I want to say one of the reasons why this is so important to me and so important. I have another lawyer who works with me. I have 4 minor children myself, and my other law partner has 2. So we've got 6 minor children in the office. So for us, where there could be a big hole is so critical. So typically what we see is that people name guardians in the will. And I first would ask individuals, well, okay, one of the things I see is they haven't actually named guardians. So you might be in that 69%. But 2, if you have, do you have backup guardians in there? What if that person can't serve? What if they decide not to? What if they've moved to another country? And then also I always say, and then is it really specific to reflect who you want as guardians? So often I'll say, okay, well, you have your sister and your brother-in-law named here. Can your brother-in-law serve alone? And some people say, yes, of course. And some people say, no way, no way. So we want to be really clear in our naming of guardians, exactly what that looks like, and then name those backup guardians in there. So that's one thing. The other thing is even more important. I say, okay, well, picture this. You go out on a date with your spouse, kids are at home with a babysitter. You've left them, your phone number. What happens if tragedy strikes? What happens if something happens to you or you and your spouse? Now, if you don't show up, the babysitter, they may, call your cell phone. But if you're not answering, what happens then? Typically in an emergency, what would happen is the police end up coming to the house at some point. Now, if that babysitter does not know who the legal guardians are or cannot contact them, the police call CPS. That's just their job. Their job is not to figure out who can take care of the children at that point. So we always say, okay, well, you've named guardians in your will. Does the babysitter know where your will is? Probably not. Does your babysitter know that you've named guardians in your will? Probably not. Right. Are the guardians that you've named, do they live close by or do they live across the country? Or do they live in another country? What happens if it takes them a week to get here? Again, we've got a CPS issue. So those are like the blaring holes to me, the big problems. And I tell parents this and they say, I never even thought about that.
Sure.
I can't believe that. So now we've got a situation where kids aren't going into permanent foster care. I'm not saying that, but they certainly could be in the care of CPS and strangers. Really, that's the bottom line. And in a tragedy, we don't want our children with anybody that is not there to love and comfort them, especially when most of us, if not all of us, have somebody, a neighbor, a friend who can take those children on a temporary basis.
Absolutely. It's amazing. It's so mind-blowing what you just shared just in these last few minutes, because you're right. I can see why that percentage is so high. Number one, I didn't realize it was 69%, right? But then when you're diving in deeper, the thought process that you help people go through. Mm-hmm. Yes, no one wants to think about tragedy happening.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
I mean, I think we're, and don't get me wrong, because I am a proponent of positive thinking, but not to the extent of that it doesn't allow you to be practical and pragmatic about such important issues for one's life.
Yeah.
And your children and your family's life. I think that's incredible. I mean, it's mind-blowing. Like my brain is just racing with this information because I'm thinking of all my friends, right? Like and so, yeah, incredible. Thank you.
You may also be thinking, and this is what I would be thinking at this moment too, is, okay, that's terrible, Laura. I didn't think about that. What do you do? What can you do? Can we do anything to change this? And the answer is yes, we absolutely can. So one of the things that we do and we think is really important is, yes, we name those permanent guardians. And yes, you can find them in the will. And yes, they're in the will. And that means that a judge is not deciding who the guardians are. But as important, we also name short-term temporary guardians. And we don't name them in your will. We have them in a turquoise folder that goes in your kitchen. And I tell my babysitter when I leave the house, if there's an emergency with my child, call 911. But if I don't come home or the police ever show up, call these individuals in this order. And they're people who live close by. It's just a temporary, it's just for maybe a few days until those permanent guardians can get there.
Right.
And so how do we make it work on a practical level? One, giving those clear instructions and communicating that to a caregiver, really important. Sharing this information with those temporary guardians, really important. I also give my clients ID cards that go in their glove box and their purse that say, hey, if I can't communicate first responder, I have minors at home, call these individuals. So the next step is having a plan. Right? It's actually having a plan. And like you said, I'm just like you. I spend so much time on making sure that I'm staying positive and focusing on things that are going to, better myself and better the world, better my practice. I don't want to dwell. I don't want to dwell on worst case scenarios. But once you have these in place, you don't have to.
Exactly. Exactly. That's the practical side of being prepared. But at the same time, it gives you, what I'm hearing you say is that having these plans, all these, boxes checked allows you to live that worry-free life because you already have it done.
Yeah.
It's that simple. You have get it done. Right. And that was, you answered it so beautifully, because that was really one of my next questions. But what happens, I guess, to make the point of why having the plan is so important? What happens if there is no plan or the plan fails?
Yes, good question. So having a comprehensive estate plan covers so many documents. We kind of just looked at what if you have a guardianship plan and it fails, or you don't have one at all if you're in that 69%. But when we're thinking about estate planning is kind of an umbrella term for lots of documents. And the focus of every document, or the focus of our motto here, is how do we make sure your family stays out of court and conflict, both in the short term, but also how do we make sure that you have a plan in place that works over time? We don't want your family to need it anytime soon. So how do we ensure it works when they need it? So going back to your question is, what does it look like if you don't have a plan in place or your plan doesn't work? And the answer is the state of California has a plan for you, and you're probably not going to like it. That's the truth of it. What happens in the state of California, just to dive quickly into the legal aspect, is if you have real property, like a house or a piece of land, or assets over about $185,000 without an effective beneficiary, it goes through probate. And what that means, bottom line, is probate is court and it is conflict. And to really make it simple, it is a big, often ugly mess.
Yes, it is.
That's it. I mean, that sums it up right there. When you think of probate, just think of court. Now, what goes along with court is all the things you imagine, right? When we think of court, we think of takes a long time, dealing with judges and filings and security lines and lawyers. Very, very stressful on family members.
Yes.
And we can't put a price on that. It really can be tragic for family members that have to deal with a big mess. But the other thing that people are thinking about, and why I think they come to me first, is it's very, very expensive.
Sure.
Why? Because it's court. It's roughly 5 to 10% of your gross assets. So it's really expensive, and you lose control over how and who it's going to. So now a judge is deciding what we want you to feel empowered to decide for yourself.
Right. And having gone through exactly that, yes, like it's bringing up some, definitely some memories that even though it was a long time ago, I sure wish I had known you at that point in my life. But no, having that personal experience is why this was really important for me. When I heard that we were going to do this and that you were a part of our fundraiser. And again, I just wanted to say thank you again for that. But it was like, yes, I know what this I know exactly what this can be and how harmful it is and how traumatic it is. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how smart you think you are. When you are, in my experience, when you are dealing with these types of situations, while you are grieving is not the time to have to deal with these situations. It adds a monumental amount of stress and broken relationships, potentially. Not, it doesn't happen to everyone, but it's just, I trust me. For those of you watching, for those of you learning today, this is not something that you want to go through. And if you can help it, and if you can get your plans in place and contact Laura, I highly, highly recommend it. Not just myself, obviously, but there are horrific stories of families that fall apart because there wasn't a plan in place or the proper plan in place. Thank you, Laura. That honestly, it is affecting me and it's bringing some of it back. Yeah. But I want to make sure that we're sharing this for people because these are people's lives. Yeah. And it's so important. So I appreciate it. One other question that I did have, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit, in your expert opinion, where do AI and do it yourself and cheaper estate plannings fail? Like, how, obviously it's a do it yourself world. Everyone has access to the internet, and especially now with AI. But for me, I have a deep, what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of distrust. So for me, my personal choice is always to work with someone one-on-one in person. Of course, obviously virtually we can do that, but with a real human being, that's my personal choice for my life decisions. But what are some of the pitfalls?
Yeah, I would say, it's too big of a deal to try to do on your own. And like you were just touching on a second ago, it's so messy and heartbreaking when it goes through probate. And I want to tell you, you touched on conflict. Money makes people crazy sometimes. Now, not everybody. I wish we all had a healthy mindset around money, but we don't. And if you want to see a family implode and then explode quickly, it's not having a clear plan. Okay. Yep. And I have seen it firsthand. Money makes people crazy. I can't say that enough. Yes. Yes. And of course I have like stories upon stories of the things that people want to fight about. And it's because when there's not a clear plan in place, that's what happens. Right. Your question was, okay, well, how does AI, right? We're in a world that's going we're going really towards AI quickly. AI, do-it-yourself planning, or a cheap plan that may or may not work, LegalZoom, something like that. Here's the problem that I see. You guys can obviously all judge for yourself. But typically when you're doing that type of plan, it's a search and replace of your name, a click of the button to print those documents. Right. They are one size fits all plans. And what I have found is no family fits into a one size fits all plan. Another thing that's so important with those kind of plans is people come to us all the time and they say, oh, I started this and it started asking me legal questions and I had no idea the answer. So I stopped. And it usually takes them quite a while to get into us, but that's very, very common is you're not getting legal advice. You're not getting expert advice. This is a complex and very important part of your life. We want to preserve your legacy. We don't want to leave it up to chance. This isn't a place where we're going to leave it up to luck, not a good place to do that. The implications are way too big if it doesn't work. The other thing with AI, I was saying it's one size fits all doesn't fit any plan well. The thing is, if you're not working with an attorney, what happens when your life changes? We want your life to evolve. We want those assets to grow, but other changes that happen, maybe someone passes away. You have a baby, you get married, you buy a house. Who do you turn to when that happens? If you're not working with anybody, what do most people do? Or even if they're working with a lawyer that's charging them by hour, most people They Google it and they get confused and they do nothing.
Right.
And now what could have been a very simple call to our office that would have cost them nothing could now turn into $100,000 plan down the road.
Right.
It's really important to work with an attorney. And one of the things that we do that sets us apart is we're a very relationship-based firm. We want to understand what you really, really want for your family. We want to understand your family dynamics.
Right.
I was working with a family and they were getting into just different details of their family. And they say, oh, this is probably too much. And I kind of smiled and said, oh, we deal with families every day. There's nothing you could say that would surprise me or make me think anything, or, that's part of this. So I love working with families, but that relationship-based approach is critical, not just to make sure your plan works for your family, but most importantly, that you have someone to turn to. And someday your family has someone to turn to when your life changes,
Right.
your life evolves, and if something happens. We don't want to come in after the fact. It's too late then.
Right.
Really too late.
Well, and I think to add to that, there's the component that, I'm sorry, but AI is never going to make you feel that this person that I'm speaking to, I can trust, Laura. I can trust, like, there is no one to trust other than, right, what AI does. It just pulls from the internet, from the web, but there's nothing that can replace trust.
Yeah.
The energy between, even though here, right, even though I already met you in person, obviously there was that energy, that beautiful, wonderful, you were doing such an amazing job for everyone that was at the event, and we're raising money for DIVINA World Foundation, right? So I had that experience already with you, but even here, the interaction and the energy that we have through video conferencing, right? This is what we're doing. You cannot replace that humanness, that connection to another being, that another person, that you're trusting your family's future. You're putting it in their hands. So for one, again, thank you I mean, this is such important information. And I hope everyone that watches or that listens to this, at least if it sparks something in them to rethink about or think about a plan, I think, this is why I do what I do, right? This is the sharing of information. I want to help as many people as possible. And I think you and I share that in common.
Definitely. Yeah, that rings so true for me. The reason I do this is to keep people out of court and conflict. I've seen both sides. I used to do complex litigation. I don't want to be in court. I don't want my family to be in court. I definitely have a whole process to keep my clients out of court. And part of it is that ongoing relationship. One of the things that we do that also, you couldn't do this through AI, you're not going to do it through a cheap plan or a DIY plan, is we want to make sure you're really organized, right? This goes into so much of our health too, right? When we feel like I'm in a good place, right? I know where my wealth is. I feel organized. Whoa, what a big relief, right?
Yes.
Big relief. So part of what we do is we help people get more organized than they've ever been. Especially, I just actually had a little post with my mom, and I said, Mom, what are you most worried about? And she said, I'm most worried that if something happens to your father, I'll have no idea where the assets are, how to find them, what's going on. It's so complex. Right. That is very common, that I've got a spouse sitting there being like, I've never paid a bill. I don't know where anything is. What happens? And what happens is they would be left with a big mess. And it's super stressful and confusing and could land assets in probate, even though there's a surviving spouse. So one of the things we want to make sure is that people get really organized, and we help them create what we call a family wealth inventory. It's a list of your assets. Well, Laura, that doesn't sound legal. That sounds like something I can do myself. Sure, you can, but do you know where all your assets are? If something happened to you, would that family member know? And the answer is usually no. Actually, it's practical. We want to be clear how and where to find your assets if something happens to you. right? And if somebody doesn't know where to locate something, there's not like a master database we can go to. What happens is eventually, if it's not claimed, it goes to the State Department of California. And there are billions, like over $15 billion in there. And that's what it's there. It's just when someone passes away and their family just didn't go and claim it. So that's something that's really important that we do for you. We want you to do. You're not going to probably do it on your own. So it's a critical part of it as well.
Thank you so much. I mean, this has been so enlightening. I want to be respectful of your time, of course. So before we sign off, before we wrap this up, first of all, how can someone who's listening or watching this, how can they connect with you? And what would be your final nugget of wisdom that you would want everyone to take away today?
Yeah, absolutely. I would encourage everyone to think right now. We all, and I know everybody out there has assets and people that they want to protect. And they want to keep out of an unnecessary, messy, expensive system. So I just want everybody to think, who in my life do I want to protect? What are my assets and legacy that I want to protect? And do I have a plan? And if I have a plan, does it still work? And if it doesn't, this is a place you can empower yourself, right? This is a gift you can give your family. You have no idea how far it will go, but I promise you it will. Best way to reach out to us is phone number here. Our main office is 650-787-4142. Our website is timelessestateplanning.com. There's a place on there I think it's /scheduling online. We always start every client with a 15-minute call with Justin. He's our client service director, but he'll walk you through any questions you have, our process, and the best ways to get started. So that's what I would encourage you all to do. And I look forward to meeting some of you out there.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you for taking time out of your day today, again, to share and, empower people, because knowledge is power.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate being here so much.
Thank you so much. I'll see you again soon, I'm sure. Thank you, Laura.
Absolutely. Thanks.
And thank you all once again. This is From the Ground Up. These are the types of sessions that we want to continue to share with you, where hopefully we are sparking, we're adding that spark of, oh, I hadn't thought of that. And if we can help you improve your life, improve the lives of your family, and be there as the conduit for who to connect with, for the right people to reach out to, make sure that if this resonates with you today, that you reach out to Laura Croft. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm Carmen Milagro. This has been another session of From the Ground Up, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.